What if I told you that the intense, inexplicable connection you feel for someone, that feeling of a soulmate, is not a romantic fantasy, but a powerful psychological event that can be decoded? The legendary psychologist Carl Jung taught that this magnetic pull is not a whim of fate, but a reflection of a hidden part of your own soul. The person you believe is your soulmate is actually a mirror, and that is why they not only bring you happiness, but also awaken your deepest wounds. This is the ultimate test. In this video, we will reveal the true meaning behind this connection and how to know if what you're feeling is real. This is the kind of deep, life-changing knowledge we explore here. A huge number of you who find these truths are watching without being subscribed. If you are ready to understand the true purpose of your most powerful connections, do 3 things for us now. Hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell so you never miss a video that could give you this clarity. And in the comments, please tell us which city or country you're watching from. We love to see how far the teachings of Carl Jung can help. After that, write the single word soulmate to affirm your journey with us. It is not a coincidence that this person has appeared in your life at this specific moment. It is a call from your unconscious to face what you have been avoiding. Perhaps you have felt that there is someone in your life who provokes emotions you cannot explain. No matter how much time passes, that connection persists. It might be a person who, with just a glance, seems to decipher you effortlessly. Or maybe it is someone with whom you have had intense conflicts, but somehow you feel there is something deeper that you cannot ignore. This is not an accident. It is the work of the unconscious, manifesting through synchronicity, one of Jung's most powerful concepts. Synchronicity is the way the universe shows you that you are on the right path. They are those coincidences that seem too significant to be mere chance. If you have found someone with whom you feel an inexplicable connection, if certain events seem to align to bring you together time and again, you may be experiencing a synchronicity that indicates this person is playing a crucial role in your internal evolution. But here is the key. Not every intense connection means you have found your soulmate. Sometimes, what you feel is not love, but a projection of your own unconscious. Jung explained that when we meet someone who attracts us deeply, what we really see in them is a reflection of what we have repressed within ourselves. It may be that this person embodies qualities you have longed for, or that they represent a part of your own psyche that you have not yet explored. That is why many relationships that seem destined end in chaos, because what initially seemed like eternal love was actually an invitation from the unconscious to integrate our own shadows. The question, then, is not just, is this person my soulmate? But what part of me is trying to reveal itself through this connection? If you want to know if that person is really your soulmate, you must look beyond the initial attraction and ask yourself, is this connection helping me to evolve? Is it challenging me to grow, to discover aspects of myself that I previously ignored? Or am I simply repeating unconscious patterns without realizing it? Soulmates do not always arrive with sweetness and harmony. They often come to challenge you, to shake you to the core of your being, because the ultimate purpose of a true soul connection is not comfort, but transformation. And when you understand this, you realize that the real question is not whether you have found your soulmate, but whether you are ready for the journey that this connection will bring to your life. Soulmates are not just a romantic story or a mystical concept. Jung taught us that the true connection with another person occurs at the deepest level of the psyche, where one's unconscious intertwines with the others in a complex dance of projection, integration, and discovery. It is not just about love, but about evolution, mutual growth, and facing the parts of ourselves that we have avoided looking at. If you feel that someone has touched your life in an inexplicable way, if that connection has unearthed emotions in you that you cannot fully comprehend, it is because your unconscious has recognized something it needs in that person. It is not necessarily because you should remain by their side forever, but because their presence in your life has a function to help you integrate the deepest and most hidden aspects of your being. One of the most common mistakes is to think that a soulmate is the person with whom everything will be easy and harmonious. Jung showed us that, in reality, those connections that have a deep purpose tend to be intense, sometimes even challenging. And this has a reason. The unconscious does not seek comfort. It seeks totality. It wants you to face your shadow, your fears, your deepest wounds. And often, the person who plays the role of your soulmate is the one who challenges you the most, the one who awakens in you everything you have denied. Perhaps you have experienced a relationship where the attraction was so strong it seemed unbreakable. But at the same time, that connection forced you to confront your insecurities, your past traumas, with emotions you didn't even know existed within you. This does not mean that this person is someone you should be with forever, but it does mean that their presence has a purpose in your evolution. Jung speaks of individuation, the process through which we become the most complete version of ourselves, and this path cannot be traveled in isolation. The people who enter our lives have a fundamental role in this process because they help us see ourselves in ways we could not see alone. The question you should ask yourself is not whether someone is your soulmate in the romantic sense of the term, but whether that person is playing the role of a catalyst in your transformation. Projection is another key concept in Jung's psychology. Many times when we fall deeply in love, we are not really seeing the other person, but what we have projected onto them. That is why many relationships begin with a phase of extreme idealization, in which we believe that the other person is perfect, that they have everything we have ever desired. But, over time, this image begins to crumble, because what we are really seeing is not the person themselves, but a reflection of our own unconscious needs. This can be difficult to accept, but it is one of the most important truths when it comes to human relationships. The person you think is your soulmate may actually be a projection of your own psyche. Perhaps they represent the security you never had, the unconditional love you long for, the freedom you feel you lack. But the problem is that when we base a relationship on projection and not on reality, a point will inevitably come when the illusion shatters. This is where many people experience the pain of a relationship that seemed destined to be, but suddenly becomes unsustainable. What is actually happening is that the projection is crumbling, and now you have the opportunity to see the other person for who they really are. This is a crucial moment, because it is here that you can decide if this relationship is based on an authentic connection, or if it has simply been the stage for your own process of self-discovery. True love is not blind, as we have often been led to believe. True love is seeing with clarity, accepting the other person in their totality without needing to idealize them or turn them into a reflection of your own shortcomings. And more importantly, true love begins with the relationship you have with yourself. Jung would tell us that before looking for our soulmate outside, we must ensure that we have integrated our own psyche, that we have worked on our shadows, that we have discovered who we really are without depending on another person to feel complete. When we have not done this inner work, relationships become a source of suffering because we constantly seek in the other something that we can only find within ourselves. And that is why so many people feel trapped in repetitive cycles of failed relationships, because they are looking outside for what they have not yet discovered inside. The true soul connection occurs when two people have done the necessary inner work to see and accept each other without masks, without projections, without the need to fill emotional voids with the other's presence. And when this happens, the relationship becomes something completely different. It is no longer a desperate search for love or validation, but a space where both souls can evolve together, where growth is mutual and the connection is authentic. But to get to this point, you must first ask yourself an essential question. Are you looking for a soulmate to complete you? Or are you ready to find someone with whom you can share your fullness? Because there is a big difference between these two things. In the first case, you will always be chasing something that never feels like enough. You will always be trapped in projection, in the illusion that someone else can give you what you lack. In the second case, you will be ready for a real relationship, for a love that is not born of need, but of true connection. Jung taught us that the most important journey we can undertake is the journey into our own interior, and it is on this journey that we really discover if we are ready to find our soulmate, or if we are still looking outside for what we can only find inside. The path to a genuine connection with another person begins with the connection you have with yourself. Jung taught us that individuation, that process in which we become complete and conscious of who we really are, is the basis for any significant relationship. If you do not know yourself, if you have not explored the depths of your own psyche, then what you perceive in the other is not true love, but a projection of your own unconscious needs and desires. That is why so many people fall into relationships where they feel an instant and overwhelming attraction, only to discover over time that what they thought was eternal love transforms into a cycle of conflicts, frustration, or even emptiness. This happens because the unconscious leads us to seek what we lack, what we have not integrated within ourselves. And many times this pushes us into relationships that, instead of filling us, reflect our deepest wounds. If you feel that a relationship consumes you emotionally, that it drains you, or makes you constantly question yourself, it is an indication that you are not seeing the other person as they are, but through the filter of your own unconscious. This does not mean that the connection is not important, but it does indicate that there is something within you that needs to be explored. Perhaps that person has come into your life not to stay forever, but to show you what you must heal. Jung spoke of the shadow, that hidden part of our psyche where we store everything we do not want to recognize about ourselves. Sometimes what attracts us in another person is precisely what is missing in our lives, or what we have repressed. If you grew up in an environment where you are not allowed to express your emotions freely, you might feel irresistibly attracted to someone who embodies that emotional freedom. If you have spent your life avoiding confrontation, you might find someone fascinating who faces the world with an intensity you have not allowed yourself. This is not love in its purest form. It is the manifestation of what Jung described as the need to integrate our shadow. But here is the key. Integrating your shadow does not mean depending on another person to feel complete. It means recognizing what parts of yourself you have been ignoring and doing the inner work to accept and incorporate them into your life. When this happens, when you begin to be aware of how your own unconscious works, relationships change radically. You no longer feel attracted to people who simply reflect what you lack, but you begin to connect with people who resonate with your authenticity. The idea of the soulmate is often misinterpreted as the arrival of someone who will complete us and make us feel whole. But Jung taught us that wholeness is an inner work. When two people have gone through this process, when they have confronted their shadow and integrated the repressed aspects of their psyche, then the relationship is not a necessity, but a choice. And this is where the true magic of human connection lies. It is not the same to look for someone to fill your voids as it is to share your life with someone from a place of fullness. When you live from a place of lack, every relationship becomes a struggle to find what you feel you are missing. But when you have done the work of knowing and accepting yourself, relationships become a space for mutual growth, for exploration, for expansion. Instead of depending on the other to feel complete, you become a reflection of that person's own growth, and vice versa. It is here that the connection transcends the physical, where the relationship becomes something more than just passion or superficial compatibility. It is the point where two souls meet, not because they desperately need each other, but because they are on the same path of evolution. And when this happens, relationships cease to be a game of projections and expectations and transform into an experience of authentic connection. If you have ever felt that someone attracts you in an inexplicable way, that their presence awakens something in you that you cannot ignore, ask yourself what part of yourself is trying to manifest through that connection. Do not stay in the romantic illusion that love is just destiny or external magic. True love begins when you understand how your own unconscious works and stop projecting your needs onto others. When you understand this, you begin to see relationships from a completely different perspective. You no longer desperately search for someone to save you, because you understand that no one can do it. Only you can do that inner work. And when you do, when you have integrated your shadows and you know yourself in depth, then relationships become a reflection of that authenticity. You do not need someone to feel complete, but if you choose to share your life with someone, it will be from a place of real love, of mutual growth, and of a connection that goes far beyond what most people understand as love. This is the type of connection that Jung invites us to seek, not a love based on dependence, but a love based on expansion. Not a relationship where the other person fills your voids, but one where both help each other to evolve. Not the obsession with finding someone who fits your idea of a soulmate, but the willingness to do the inner work to become the best version of yourself, and from there, attract someone who is on the same path. There are no magic formulas or definitive signs that tell you if someone is your soulmate, but there is something you can always do. Look inward, explore what you feel, understand what part of you is manifesting in that connection. And if you are willing to do this work, if you really want to live an authentic love, you will discover that the right person will arrive when you are ready, not when you think you need them. When you begin to see relationships as a reflection of your inner world, everything changes. It is no longer just about whether someone is your soulmate, but about what that connection is teaching you about yourself. Jung showed us that the deepest relationships are not necessarily the easiest, but those that take us to the edge of our own transformation. They are the ones that shake us, that make us question, that expose us to our own wounds and force us to face them. That is why many times the person who attracts us the most is also the one who puts us in front of our biggest fears. Perhaps you have felt that sensation before, that bond that seems inevitable, but at the same time awakens in you all kinds of contradictory emotions. Sometimes it is love, other times it is fear, other times it is an intense need to be with that person, although you cannot explain why. This is not a coincidence. It is the work of the unconscious manifesting in its purest form. If you have ever felt that a person awakens extreme emotions in you, that their presence in your life makes you feel vulnerable, exposed, or even overwhelmed, it is possible that you are experiencing what Jung called the process of projection. What you see in the other person, what you love, what you hate, what makes you desperate, or what fills you with energy, is a reflection of something inside you that you have not yet fully recognized. This is the reason why some relationships seem almost impossible to let go of, because it is not just about the person themselves, but about what they represent for your psyche. But here is the most important part. Not all relationships that awaken these emotions are destined to last. Some exist only to teach you something, to show you what you need to integrate, to push you towards a more evolved version of yourself. Clinging to a connection just because it is intense can be a mistake, because not all intensity means there is a long-term purpose. Sometimes the real lesson is to learn to let go. Jung spoke of the importance of listening to the signals of the unconscious, of paying attention to the patterns that repeat in our lives. If you have found yourself time and again in relationships that end the same way, if you are always attracted to the same type of person and the outcome is similar, it is not because destiny is playing with you. It is because there is a lesson you have not yet learned, and until you face it, you will continue to attract the same situations, the same dynamics, the same people disguised with different faces. Conscious love is completely different from love based on projection. When you love from a place of consciousness, you do not seek for the other to complete you, but to share a path of growth with you. You do not need the other to fill emotional voids because you have already done the inner work to understand and accept who you are. And when you reach this point, the quality of your relationships changes completely. It is no longer about impulsive attraction or desperate need, but about a deep and real connection. It is in this state that relationships can become a genuine source of evolution. Here is where you can really find someone with whom to build something that makes sense, because you are both on the same level of consciousness. Both have done the inner work. Both understand that love is not just about passion or destiny, but about the conscious decision to grow together. If you are in a relationship right now, ask yourself, is this person helping me to grow? Am I seeing the real person or just a projection of my own needs? Am I choosing to be here from a place of consciousness or from a place of lack? And if you are not in a relationship, ask yourself, what part of myself do I need to integrate before seeking a connection with someone else? Because the answer to this question will define the type of person you will attract into your life. Love is not just finding someone to share your life with. It is finding someone with whom you can evolve, with whom you can be authentic without fear, with whom you can face your shadows and also celebrate your light. Jung taught us that true fullness is not found in the other, but within ourselves. And when we understand this, relationships cease to be a desperate search and become an experience of growth, exploration, and real connection. The soulmate, in its purest form, is not the person who comes to save or complete you. It is the person who shows you who you really are, who confronts you with your fears, who challenges you to grow, who reflects back to you the parts of yourself that you have not yet embraced. And when you manage to integrate this truth, you discover that love is much more than destiny or chance. It is a choice. It is the result of inner work. It is the reflection of your own level of consciousness. Do not obsess over finding your soulmate. Instead, focus on becoming the most authentic and whole version of yourself. Because when you do this, the connections that really matter appear naturally, without needing to force them. And when the right person arrives, you will know. Not because they fit a preconceived idea, but because they will resonate with the truth of who you are in the deepest part of your being. Love and relationships are not simple coincidences. Everything that happens in your life, especially in the emotional realm, is deeply connected to your inner world. Jung taught us that what we experience in our relationships is a direct manifestation of our psyche, a projection of what we have repressed, what we need to integrate, and what we have not yet understood about ourselves. If you have found yourself in situations where you feel an overwhelming connection with someone, where the attraction is so intense that it seems uncontrollable, you must ask yourself, is this a true soul connection or a manifestation of my unconscious? Not all relationships that impact us are destined to be eternal. Some come only to teach us something crucial about ourselves. The key is to recognize when a relationship is there to help you evolve, and when it is simply a repetition of unconscious patterns that you have not yet resolved. Most people live their relationships in a state of unconsciousness, repeating over and over the same mistakes, the same dynamics, the same conflicts. They feel trapped in cycles of attraction and rejection, of love and disillusionment, without understanding that the solution is not outside, but inside. Jung would tell us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct your life, and you will call it destiny. So, how can you know if a person is really your soulmate, and not just a manifestation of an unconscious pattern? The answer is not in the intensity of the connection, but in what that connection makes you feel in the long run. If the relationship constantly immerses you in chaos, anxiety, and imbalance, it is possible that it is not love, but a repetition of unhealed wounds. If, on the other hand, the relationship challenges you to grow, helps you to expand, and allows you to be who you really are without fear or masks, then there is a genuine connection. The difference between a relationship based on projection and one based on authenticity is that in the first, you look for in the other what you feel you lack, while in the second, you share from a place of fullness. It is not the same to enter a relationship with the expectation that someone else will fill your voids as it is to do so from a place of emotional self-sufficiency. And here is the key. Your soulmate is not the person who completes you, but the one with whom you can share your path without losing yourself in the process. That is why Jung spoke of the integration of the anima and the animus. Within each person, there exists a masculine and a feminine part, complementary energies that must be in balance for us to live a full life. When these energies are unbalanced, we look for in the other what we lack within ourselves. But when they are in harmony, our relationships cease to be a search for completeness and become a mutual expansion. If you have ever felt that you cannot live without someone, if you feel that person is your other half, it is a sign that there is still inner work to be done. Because true love is not based on need, but on the conscious choice to share your life with someone who helps you evolve. The true soul connection does not feel like a desperate obsession, but like a natural resonance that flows without being forced. The greatest proof that a relationship is authentic is not the number of extreme emotions it generates, but the ability that both have to grow together without losing their individuality. In a genuine connection, there is no fear of being oneself, no need for power games or emotional dependence. There is a safe space where both people can evolve, learn, and face their own shadows, without projecting them onto the other. When you start to live from this level of consciousness, the relationships you attract change. You stop repeating the same mistakes. You stop feeling trapped in toxic relationships. You stop desperately looking for someone to make you feel complete. Because you understand that true fullness does not come from the outside, but from the inside. And when you have reached that level of self-knowledge, the right person arrives effortlessly, because you no longer need them to fill a void, but to share the expansion of your own essence. This is what Jung really wanted to teach us, that love is not something we find in another person, but something we discover within ourselves. And when we have made that discovery, when we have integrated our shadows and recognized our own light, then we are ready for a connection that is not based on need, but on truth. So, before you ask yourself if someone else is your soulmate, ask yourself this question: am I my own soulmate? Have I learned to love and accept myself completely? Because only when you can answer yes to this question will you be ready for a connection that is truly worthwhile. And at that moment, the right person will appear, not as someone who comes to save you, but as someone who walks by your side, reflecting the best version of yourself. When you reach this level of consciousness, when you understand that true love is not an external search but a manifestation of your inner world, you realize that you do not desperately need to find someone who fits the romantic idea of a soulmate. Instead, you begin to attract people who are on the same level of consciousness as you, people with whom you can share a deep bond without getting lost in emotional dependence or in the illusion that the other must complete you. But there is something else you should know. Jung taught us that the unconscious has a peculiar way of communicating with us through repetitive patterns of relationships that seem to follow the same cycle over and over again. If you feel that you are always attracted to the same type of person, that each relationship ends in a similar way, or that there is a pattern in your romantic connections, it is not a coincidence. It is your unconscious trying to teach you something. Until you stop to listen to it and make conscious what has been hidden, you will continue to repeat the same stories. That is why the real transformation occurs when you take control of your own story. When instead of looking outside, you look inside. When instead of obsessing over finding your soulmate, you focus on becoming the most authentic and conscious version of yourself. Because at that moment, everything changes. The connections you thought were impossible begin to flow. The right people come into your life effortlessly, and relationships cease to be a source of suffering and become a space for growth and expansion. Now I want you to think about this. Are you willing to do this inner work? Are you ready to stop looking outside for what you can only find inside? If this message has resonated with you, it's because you understand that true love is not about finding someone to complete you, but about finding someone with whom you can evolve. You now have the wisdom to see your relationships not as chance, but as a reflection of your inner world. To seal this powerful new perspective, we invite you to make a declaration. Go to the comments and write the words, "I am my own soulmate." Let this be your testament that you are ready for a love based on truth, not illusion. If this video gave you a breakthrough, give it a like and share it with someone who is still searching for answers. An incredible number of people who are on this journey find our videos but are not yet subscribed. If you are ready to continue this path of conscious evolution with us, subscribe now and activate the bell. Remember, when you change your inner world, the outer world inevitably changes with it. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next video.